Dear friends, welcome to the third session of the online classes in nanotechnology and nanomaterials. Now, until the last sessions, we studied about what are meant by nanomaterials and nanotechnology. So, nanotechnology is designing, manufacture, and characterization of the materials or components or devices or any systems which are manufactured at nanometer level, at least in one dimension. So whatever the materials or components that are prepared, they are now called as the nanomaterials. So the nanomaterials are the objects which have a size of nanometer scale, at least in one dimension. So a nanometer means 10 to the power of minus 9 of a meter. So any material or the components whose size is of the order of 1 nanometer to 100 nanometers, at least in one dimension, then only they are termed as the nanomaterials. Now, why these nanomaterials are so important? We have seen that they develop different properties, different chemical and physical properties when compared to their bulk counterparts. And the two important reasons for acquiring these phenomenal properties are an enormous increase in the specific surface area of the materials, which is actually defined as the ratio of surface area to the volume. And the second reason for acquiring these phenomenal properties are the quantum confinement, that is the reorganization of the energy levels because of the reduction in the size. So later on we have seen the classification of nanomaterials. So broadly they are classified as fullerenes or carbon nanotubes as one type, or organic or inorganic nanomaterials. Then we have seen the various synthesis methods of nanomaterials. So broadly there are two approaches used. The first one, it is called as the top-down method, and the second one, it is called as the bottom-up method. So the various methods that are included under the top-down techniques are ball milling method, physical vapor deposition method, then wire explosion method, laser ablation method, etc. Or laser ablation, pulse laser vapor deposition method is also another method which comes under the top-down technique. While the bottom-up techniques, the different types are sol gel method, co-precipitation method, chemical vapor deposition method, green synthesis, combustion methods, etc. Now, among these, we have discussed about various methods of synthesizing the nanomaterials, like ball milling methods, physical vapor deposition methods, wire explosion method, laser ablation method, and similarly under this particular technique called as bottom-up technique, we have studied the sol gel method, chemical vapor deposition method. Now, among these methods, we have considered that this sol gel method is considered to be a versatile method wherein different forms of nanomaterials like very high dense ceramics or glasses can be prepared, powders can be prepared, nanotubes or nanowires can be prepared, or thin films can be prepared. Similarly, a high porous, high dense zero cells can be prepared, whereas high porous, light density aerosols can also be prepared. So this is a versatile method, which is also called as a wet method or a low temperature method, where the different stages of various process, the different stages of the process, most of the stages, they are undergone at very low temperatures, right? Now, in this session, let us discuss about the other class of nanomaterials called as the carbon nanotubes. Now, in fact, in 1991, Sumio Izuma, a Japanese scientist, while examining some samples of carbon crystals, namely fullerenes, using electric arc discharge method by a transmission electron microscope, accidentally observed these carbon nanotubes. In his words itself, I spent so much time using a microscope, the discovery was inevitable. So, what are carbon nanotubes? Carbon nanotubes are one of the allotropic forms of carbon and are a member of fullerene structure family, also called as Bucky tubes. Now we know that carbon already exists in different forms like amorphous carbon material or a hard material in the form of diamond. Similarly, another form which is called as a graphite, which is considered to be a very smooth material. In most of the cases, it is also used as a lubricant. So carbon nanotubes are another allotropic form of the carbon which have a fullerene structure. Now, the structure of the carbon nanotube can be thought of as a graphene sheet. So if you observe a graphene sheet, almost it appears in this form. So therefore, it appears as if a graphene sheet, which is one atom thick honeycomb structure of carbon atoms in a plane of graphite material, and that whenever it is appeared to be rolled to form the cylindrical tubes, seamless cylindrical tubes, then whatever the structures that are formed, they are called as the carbon nanotubes. Now these carbon nanotubes usually they have a diameter ranging from about 1 nanometer to 50 nanometers, and the length varying from 1 1 micrometer to nearly 18 centimeters. So a graphene sheet or a graphene material can be thought of as one of the layers of the graphite. So a graphite is considered to have different layers of these graphene sheets, which are considered to be made up of one atom thick honeycomb structure of carbon atoms. Now, when the same graphene sheet, if it is assumed to be rolled into form of cylinders, then we get what are called as the carbon nanotubes. Or if the same thing is formed into a closed sphere, hollow sphere, then these are called as the buckyballs. Now, broadly, carbon nanotubes are classified into two categories, namely single-walled carbon nanotubes or multi-walled carbon nanotubes. Now, in case of the single-walled carbon nanotubes, these will have a structure such that if the graphene sheet is assumed to be rolled, forming as a single layer of graphene sheet, then that type of carbon nanotubes, they are called as single-walled carbon nanotubes. Whereas the multi-walled carbon nanotubes have a structure of multi-layered cylindrical tubes of graphene sheets rolled to form concentric cylindrical tubes with the diameter of each cylinder with an increasing order. So those are termed as the multi-walled carbon nanotubes. Further, the multi-walled carbon nanotubes are classified into two categories, namely Russian doll model carbon nanotubes, which are found to have a concentric cylinders of graphene sheets. So here we have different graphene sheet layers which are found to have a concentric cylinders with an increasing order of the diameter. Whereas the second type of multi-walled carbon nanotubes are called as Prachment model carbon nanotubes. Now here in this case, this type of carbon nanotubes are said to be arised if we assume a sheet of a graphene sheet is to be rolled into multi-layers, forming a multi-layers such that the cross-section, if it is observed, it appears as if a spiral cross-section of layers of graphene sheet. So continuously, the various cylinders that are formed will have an ever-growing uh, diameter with a continuous sheet. So the multi-walled carbon nanotubes, they are classified into these two categories, namely Russian doll model or Approachment model. But usually, in most of the cases, the carbon nanotubes, they are formed as closed-end carbon nanotubes. So the ends of the carbon nanotubes, whatever the cylindrical forms they are formed, so the ends are also found to be like a closed one. Occasionally, in a few cases, we can have what are called as open-ended carbon nanotubes. So this is one way of classifying the carbon nanotubes as either single-walled or multi-walled, or multi-walled can be again classified as either Russian doll model carbon nanotubes or Prachment model nanotubes. Apart from that, there is another type of classification of the carbon nanotubes, which is considered to be based on what is called as the chirality. Chirality means it is something like how the graphene sheet is assumed to be rolled. Based on that one, we can form different types of carbon nanotubes. Now, before studying about this one, now here we are saying what is called as this chirality. So this chirality, that is the way in which we are able to, or we can able to roll the graphene sheet, it mainly depends on one vector called as the chiral vector, which is denoted by CH is equivalent to NA1 plus MA2, where here A1 and A2, they are called as the basic vectors or basic directional vectors within this graphene sheet. Now let us see how we get these directions. Now for this, let us assume that we have a graphene sheet, which is nothing but a honeycomb structure, where here we will be having several carbon ring structures. So this is now considered as one ring structure. So like that, we have different ring structures here. Now within each ring structure, we can find 6 carbon atoms. Now for the convenience, let us name all these carbon atoms with some number. Like, let us say that this carbon atom, it is called as first carbon atom, and let us name it as second carbon atom, and this as third carbon atom, fourth, fifth, and sixth. So in this particular ring, every carbon atom is given some name or like a number. Similarly, if we consider an adjacent ring, so it will also consist of 6 carbon atoms, and therefore once again let us name all these one with the similar numbering like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So in this way, every ring structure of these carbon atoms, where there are 6 carbon atoms involved in the covalent bonds, so every carbon atom, let us assume that it is given a number or a name like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So for example, if we consider this particular carbon atom, now this can be called by two names, like either it can be called as the second carbon atom or the sixth carbon atom. based on the ring that we are considering. So if we consider this particular ring structure, now this particular atom becomes the second carbon atom, while if this ring is considered, the same carbon atom is now named as sixth carbon atom. So therefore, in every ring, let us consider a particular carbon atom given with the same number or the same name. Like for example, let us take, this is now considered as the first carbon atom of this particular ring structure, and let us consider this as the the first carbon atom within this ring structure, and similarly now this forms as the first carbon atom in this particular ring structure. Now all the carbon atoms with the same number or the same name, they are termed as analogous carbon atoms. Analogous carbon atoms. Now, taking these analogous carbon atoms, we can now define two basic vectors within this honeycomb structure. These are nothing but two directions which are proceeded considering one of the carbon atoms as the origin. If we proceed along one direction, so that if we get the uh, similar analogous atom in one direction, and in the similar way, if you proceed in the other direction in the same plane, where we can get the another analogous atom adjacent to the same ring structure, then these two directions, they are now called as the basic vectors A1 and A2. Now, based on these two vectors, now we form what is called as the chiral vector, which is now represented by NA1 plus MA2, where now A1 and A2 forms these basic vectors, while N and M are some integers. Now, based on the values of these integers, namely N and M values, we can have different vectors formed, resultant vectors formed. For example, let us take the first case where CH is equivalent to some 3A1, where here M is equivalent to 0. So now let us see how this vector is formed. Now for that purpose, now let us take this as the reference atom, and from this reference atom, let us now proceed for obtaining this 3A1. So this vector now corresponds to the basic vector A1 along this direction. So this along this direction, it is to be repeated for 3 times. So now this vector, it forms what is called as 3A1 vector, and if we take a perpendicular to this vector, this is called as a perpendicular vector to this chiral vector. So this is actually called as the chiral vector. So now if we take a vector perpendicular to it, and if we assume that this graphene sheet is rolled in such a way that this perpendicular vector of this chiral vector forms as the axis of that cylindrical form, then whatever the nanotube structure that is obtained, it is now called as an zigzag type of carbon nanotube. Zigzag type of carbon nanotubes. The reason is that whenever the structure is rolled or this graphene sheet is rolled with this vector forming as the axis of that cylindrical form that is obtained, then we can see that this forming as something like a zigzag way. So that is the reason this type of nanotubes which are now formed, they are termed as the zigzag type of carbon nanotubes. So here when m is equivalent to 0, if we roll the graphene sheet forming the perpendicular vector to the chiral vector forming as the axis of this cylindrical tube, then we get what are called as the zigzag type of carbon nanotubes. Right? Now, let us take the other case. Now, let us take a chiral vector represented by 2a1 plus 3a2, where along the a1 direction, it needs to proceed by 2 times, and along a2 direction, it needs to proceed by 3 times, right? So now let us try to construct this particular vector. Now once again, here in this case, let us take this as the reference vector. Now taking this as the reference vector, now 2a1 is represented by this structure, this vector. So this forms 2a1. Now from here, let us proceed to 3a1 now. So 1, 2, 3. So this forms what is called as, from this one, we get what is called as 3a2. So the resultant, namely 2a1 plus 3a2, from the reference point, it is now obtained as this vector, right? Now, let us take, or let us assume, a perpendicular vector to this one. Now, here, sorry. So here in this case, whenever the graphene sheet is assumed to be rolled into a cylindrical tube with this one acting as the axis of that one, then whatever the resultant vector or the resultant carbon nanotubes that are formed, they are called as the chiral vectors, chiral nanotubes, right? So here we have a chiral vector formed with different values of m and n, right? Now let us take another case, right? So let us take a third case. So let us see how the chiral nanotubes are appearing. So when m is not equivalent to n, then we get an axis in such a way that if we observe, this also appears as if it is flowing in a chiral form, that is in a spiral form, right? So that is the reason this type of nanotubes, they are called as the chiral nanotubes. Now the third type of nanotubes, they are obtained by taking a vector or a chiral vector which is represented as, so let us take a chiral vector. So let us take a, so now let us take a chiral vector, namely CH is equivalent to 2a1 plus 2a2. That is, here in this case, n is equivalent to m. Now let us see how that particular type of uh, uh, vector results. Now taking this as the reference now, let us proceed to 2a1. So now this vector represents 2a1. Now from there onwards, now let us proceed to 2a2. So this represents 2a2. Sorry, 2a2. So now the resultant of 2a1 plus 2a2 can be taken as this form, this forming the chiral vector which is equivalent to 2a1 plus 2a2, where now let us take a perpendicular to this. So if the graphene sheet is assumed to be rolled in such a way that if this perpendicular vector becomes the axis of that particular cylinder, then whatever the resultant structure of carbon nanotubes that are obtained, they are termed as arm-chaired carbon nanotubes. So let us see how that arm-chaired carbon nanotubes are obtained. So now if we take that perpendicular vector, now this appears to be something like this. So this forming as the axis of that cylinder, we can see that now the way how these bonds are appearing, they appear as if it is something like a chaired form, an arm-chaired form, right? So that is the reason this is given as the name, namely arm-chaired form of carbon nanotubes. So therefore, this is another way of classifying the carbon nanotubes based on the chirality. That is, the way in which the graphene sheet is assumed to be rolled. Based on that one, either we can get what are called as the arm-chaired carbon nanotubes, or we can get zigzag type of carbon nanotubes, or we get chiral nanotubes, where the type of carbon nanotubes mainly depend on that chiral vector. So it depends on the chiral vector, which is given by NA1 plus MA2, where M is equal to N, then we get arm-chaired carbon nanotubes, or when M is equal to 0, we get zigzag type of carbon nanotubes, or when M is not equal to N, but at the same time, this M should not be equal to 0. It should not be equal to 0. Then in such case, we get what are called as the chiral type of carbon nanotubes, right? So broadly, these are the classifications of different types of carbon nanotubes. Now, how to synthesize these carbon nanotubes? Now, again, we can have the same approaches, namely top-down approach as well as bottom-up approaches. So, ball mill method is considered to be one of the versatile method or very low or economic method of producing the carbon nanotubes, which comes under the class or the technique, namely top-down technique. While all the other one, the arc method or laser ablation method. So all these, they are considered to be the similar technique called as the top-down techniques. While the chemical vapor deposition method, it is considered to be a bottom-up technique. While the other three, they are called as the top-down techniques, right? So now let us try to discuss in detail about these methods. So already we have discussed about the ball mill method. So here the basic principle is crushing the large size particles into smaller particles. So the suitable metallic materials are taken, and whenever they are grinded using this ball mill, then we get what are called as the nanomaterials. In the similar way, when a graphite powder is introduced into the cylinder of this ball mill mission and the milling is done, then we can get what are called as the carbon nanotubes. But here, during the process, it is found that there is a possibility of oxidation occurring. So to prevent that oxidation, argon gas is introduced into the cylinder. And usually this milling process, it is done at the room temperature. Now, after this, whatever the powder that is obtained, so that is now considered to be actually the graphite powder. Initially, if we take, it will be in the crystalline form. So when it is subjected to this milling process, then it is found that that converts into the amorphous state. So this amorphous powder, it is now isothermally annealed, that is rise to a very high temperature like to about nearly 1600 degrees centigrade and then cooled. Then after annealing, we can able to obtain what are called as multi-walled carbon nanotubes, right? So here in this case, the whatever the carbon nanotubes that are formed, they mainly depend on, that is the size or the diameter with which they are formed. They mainly depend on the duration of this milling. Usually this milling is performed to about 50 hours, sometimes starting from 10 hours to 50 hours of milling. In some cases, even the the milling is also proceeded for 100 hours too. Right? So whenever the duration of the milling is increased, it is found that more amorphous state is said to be obtained. So because of that, the diameter of the carbon nanotubes that are formed, they can be reduced. So if the milling time is reduced, then a larger diameter carbon nanotubes are said to be obtained, right? So the advantage of this method are bulk quantities can be produced as usual, and this is considered to be a very economic process. But whereas the disadvantages of this method are, now usually when the milling is done for a limited time, then large diameter carbon nanotubes are said to be obtained. So to decrease the diameter of the carbon nanotubes, the milling time is to be increased. So here, whenever the milling time is increased, so here, whenever the milling time is increased, then it is found that there will be some contamination obtained in the material because of the balls that are introduced. They can get broken and they can be mixed into this amorphous powder, and because of that, after annealing, some contamination of the material is said to be obtained. So this is how the carbon nanotubes of multi-walled. So usually multi-walled with the closed end carbon nanotubes are formed by this method called as the ball milling method. So here the diameter as well as the length of the carbon nanotubes mainly depend on the duration of the milling, and also it also depends on the ball to powder ratio, weight ratio. Now usually the ball to powder ratio, it is taken as 8:1. That is, the ball weight should be 8 times greater than the weight of the material, that is the powder material that is taken, right? So based on that one, we can have the carbon nanotubes, multi-walled carbon nanotubes produced by this method called as the ball mill method, right? Now, the next method, it is called as the chemical vapor deposition method. Now, this is the schematic representation of the chemical vapor deposition method. Now, one of the advantages or the importance of this chemical vapor deposition method is that in no other methods we can able to get what are called as open-ended carbon nanotubes. That is, the carbon nanotubes in many of the cases that are formed, they will have closed-ended carbon nanotubes. They will have a closed ends. Whereas in this particular method, we can able to obtain what are called as the open-ended carbon nanotubes. Now, as usual, here again, the procedure is the same. So here, the chemical vapor deposition of carbon hydrocarbons over the metallic catalyst is the classical method that has been used to produce the various carbon materials such as carbon fibers and the filaments. Actually, this process involves two steps. The first step, it is the preparation of the catalyst, followed by the actual process of synthesizing the carbon nanomaterials. So here in this case, what actually they do is they take a silica or a zeolite material as the substrate material, and that substrate material, it is infused with some catalysts like iron, cobalt, nickel, or as a combination of these things. And the source of the carbon atoms usually taken as some methane gas or acetylene or ethanol, etc., are taken as the precursor gases or the source gases. So here, two gases are introduced into this reaction chamber, which are preheated. So these two gases are heated to a very large temperatures, nearly about 1600 degrees centigrade or so, and they are now made to introduced into this reaction chamber, or otherwise called as the reactor. Now within this reactor, as usual, already we have seen that the cold atoms that are present there, the hot atoms, they collide with them and they start agglomerating on this suitable substrate. And this substrate, because it is now coated with some catalyst, now carbon nanotubes are formed by forming what is called as the nucleation process. So usually here the substrate, it is maintained at a temperature of 800 to 1200 degrees centigrade, right? So here in this case, now single-walled carbon nanotubes are said to be formed over the substrate when no catalyst like these materials, if these materials are not used, then when no catalysts are used, then multi-walled carbon nanotubes are said to be formed. Whereas if some catalysts are used, then usually the open-ended carbon nanotubes are single-walled. Sorry. So single-walled carbon nanotubes are formed when there is a catalyst obtained or when there is a catalyst present. When there is no catalyst, then multi-walled carbon nanotubes are said to be formed, right? So in this case, usually open-ended carbon nanotubes are said to be formed, and this is the main importance of this method, where in no other process we can able to get these open-ended carbon nanotubes. So by using some catalyst, we can able to get single-walled carbon nanotubes, and without catalyst, we can able to get what are called as the multi-walled carbon nanotubes. So the advantages of this method are, again, bulk volumes can be obtained. So in no other method we can able to get what are called as this open-ended carbon nanotubes. Only in this method we can able to get open-ended carbon nanotubes. Either single-walled or double-walled carbon nanotubes can be obtained when the catalyst is being used. Multi-walled carbon nanotubes are obtained when no catalysts are present on this substrate. While the disadvantages of this method are, this method involves a very high temperatures. So the precursor gas as well as the carrier gas, so both are to be at a very high temperature and they are carried into this reaction chamber. So high temperatures are involved in this particular process. And at the same time, whatever the gases that are obtained as the output, they may cause some environmental pollution. So there should be a care to be taken to control this exhaust gases so that the environmental pollution can be reduced, right? So here, let us see a small video about this chemical vapor deposition method. So the initial process, you have seen that the preparation for the substrate and with suitable catalyst, and later on the uh, hydrocarbon gas is introduced into this one, the reaction chamber, thereby obtaining the required carbon nanotubes. The next method, it is called as the arc method, or it's also called as the plasma arc method. Now, already we have discussed about this one in synthesizing the nanomaterials. So there, the one of the electrodes is taken as the required material whose nanomaterials are to be prepared, while here in this case, both the electrodes are taken as the carbon materials. So a carbon electrode, usually of 5 centimeters diameter, is used as the cathode, while another electrode made up of same carbon of 3 centimeters dia and of about 10 to 20 centimeters in length is taken as the anode. Now here, usually this anode disintegrates, so that is the reason there will be an arrangement where it can be pushed into this chamber so that there will be a constant gap present in between these two electrodes. Now usually a gap of 1 millimeter is maintained between the two electrodes, and these two electrodes are now connected to a very high potential source or a current source giving away of about 50 to 100 amperes driven by 20 volts of DC supply. Now, because of this high current and within this evacuated chamber, that is within this low pressure region, an electric discharge will take place between the two electrodes. And this electric discharge will cause an electric arc between the two electrodes, increasing the temperature to a very high value. And this arc, which is causing a high temperature, will fuse the material of the anode, and that starts moving towards the cathode, but in between a suitable, that is that cathode itself, sometimes it is taken as the substrate, or a suitable substrate will be placed in between where these carbon atoms which are now vaporized with this arc that is created, so they will get collected over that substrate. So the vapors are condensed on a suitable substrate placed in the chamber. And here also, if some catalyst is used over this cathode material, then we can able to get what are called as single-walled carbon nanotubes, otherwise multi-walled carbon nanotubes with even no catalyst, when no catalysts are used on the substrate, then single-walled carbon nanotubes are formed, otherwise multi-walled carbon nanotubes are formed in this case also, right? So this is another method of producing the carbon nanotubes, of course, where we can produce in the high volumes by this method also, right? So these are some of the methods of producing the carbon nanotubes, namely by ball mill method, chemical vapor deposition method, and the arc method, right? So far we have discussed the different ways of producing or synthesizing the nanomaterials as well as the carbon nanotubes. Now let us discuss about the properties of the nanomaterials. Now already we have discussed that whenever the materials are taken at the nanoscale, the physical as well as chemical properties of the materials are found to enormously change when compared to their bulk structures. So how these different properties are getting changed, let us see. Now coming to the first property, namely the thermal property. Now a predominant reduce in the size is causing to enormously increase what is called as the specific surface area, right? So with this, the interparticle spacing is also get to change, or almost it will be very small. So this change in the interparticle spacing and the combined effect of this enormous increase in the specific surface area is found to cause a change in the surface free energy and change in the chemical potential. So this change in the surface energy and the chemical potential affects one of the thermodynamic properties, namely the melting point. Actually, it is found that with a decrease in the size of the particles, the melting point is found to decrease, right? So that is the reason we have observed that gold, which is considered to be in the solid phase at the bulk structures, whenever it is taken at the nanoscale, it is found to be appearing in the liquid form. So the melting point of the materials gets enormously decreased whenever the size of the particles is decreased. Then coming to the mechanical properties. So whenever we say the mechanical properties, it is something like enhancing the strength. If the materials have a high strength, then we say that the mechanically that particles are said to be very good. And the hardness or the strength, they are found to depend on the way how the defects, that is whenever the material is subjected to any stress, how the defects are propagated within the material, that actually defines the strength within the material. Actually, in case of the bulk structures, it is found that there will be the boundaries between the grains that of the grains of the particles, it will be very small, so that whatever the stress that is applied on the material, it may cause the defect that is produced in the material to propagate through the material for a longer distance. Whereas if we take the same materials at the nanoscale, with the decrease in the size, it is found that the grain boundaries are found to enormously increase, and this increase in the grain boundaries will cause or will arrest the defect that is propagating within the material. So because the grain boundary is very large, whatever the stress that is applied causing the defect, because of that longer grain boundary, that gets arrested at that grain itself, and it will not get propagated to the next grain, so that the defect, the propagation of the defect is arrested. And this causes an increase, an enormous increase in the strength of the material. So therefore, whenever the materials are taken at the nanoscale, then it is found that the strength of the material is found to increase from 2 to 7 times when the size is reduced from, say, about 1 micrometer to about 10 nanometers. Similarly, in case of the brittle ceramics, we know that they are very fragile. So in case of the brittle ceramics, whenever they are taken at the nanoscale, it is found that their plasticity is found to increase enormously because of the grain size again, because of the reduction in the grain size, wherein an elongation of 100% to 1000%, that means the elongation can be obtained by twice to 10 times in that material, and this behavior, it is usually termed as superplasticity of that material, right? So with the reduction in the size, usually the materials are found to acquire a very large strength, and at the same time, the brittle substances, they are found to acquire what is called as the superplasticity. So these are about the mechanical properties. Then coming to the electrical properties. Now, when the size of the particles is now decreased, it is found that the size, whenever it is comparable to the mean free path of the conduction electrons, then the electrical properties, especially like resistance or the conductivity, is found to enormously change. So with the reduction in the size whenever it is comparable to the mean free path, then the probability of scattering of the electrons during the propagation, it gets decreased, and whenever there is no scattering occurring, usually then the conductivity of the material increases, right? So with a decrease in the size, it is found that the electrical conductivity of the material is found to increase. So it is found that now in certain cases, the materials are found to acquire a very large conductivity, even in case of the ceramics. But in very few cases, it is found that the conductivity is going to decrease with a decrease in the size. But in general, with a decrease in the size, the conductivity is found to increase. Even in the case of the ceramic materials, it is also found to increase. Then coming to the magnetic properties. So the magnetic properties are also found to get enormously differed whenever the size of the particles is reduced to the nanoscale. Importantly, the coercivity and the saturation magnetization are found to increase when the grain size is decreased. Now, the small grain size, that is at the nanoscale, is found to increase the surface area to volume ratio, that is specific surface area, and that causes a large number of atoms to be made available at the surface. And because of this, the coordination number is found to get decreased at the atoms that are present at the surface. Now, the lowering of this coordination number, it is found to cause an increase in the magnetic moments of the substance. So because of this increase in the magnetic moments, the materials are found to acquire a large retentivity, coercivity, and saturation magnetization. So that is the reason the materials which are considered to be paramagnetic at bulk structures like sodium, potassium, etc., which are considered to be paramagnetic in nature, whenever they are taken at the nanoscale, they are found to behave as ferromagnetic. That is, they acquire spontaneous magnetization, they acquire a very high resistive coercivity and retentivity and saturation magnetization. So, the magnetic properties are found to enormously increase, like coercivity as well as retentivity and saturation magnetization are found to increase with the reduction in the grain size. Then, coming to the optical properties. So, the optical properties are found to change when the size is reduced to the nanoscale. Here, the quantum confinement is the reason causing this change in the optical properties. So, as the size is reduced, already we have discussed that quantum confinement, due to the quantum confinement, reorganization of the energy levels will take place in the material. That is, the way in which the electrons can climb and de-excite will also get changed. Now, normally, the energy liberated mainly depends on the energy difference between the two energy states. Like the energy liberated will be given by in general as E2 by E1, E2 minus E1. So if you have two energy states like E1 and E2, if any electron de-excites from the high energy state E2 to E1, then it releases a photon of h nu, which is equivalent to E2 minus E1. So as the energy level organization is getting changed, so therefore the way in which the climbing as well as the de-excitation of the electrons will change, and due to this, the optical properties, that is the way in which they are emitting the light, it is also found to get changed. So that is the reason if you take the gold nanoparticles, they are found to appear in different colors. As the grain size is reduced, so with 100 nanometers, the gold nanoparticles are found to appear somewhat purple in color, that is bluish color in, they will be bluish in color. As the size of the particles is reduced, then the color is found to convert into red. So intermediately, somewhere here we are also able to get a green colored so green colored nanoparticles are also be obtained. So 100 nanometers are found to appear as purple in color, while 50 nanometer grains are found to appear in green in color, while 30 nanometer grains are found to appear as red in color. So the optical properties of the materials are also found to change due to the quantum confinement. Similarly, the chemical properties, especially whenever we say the chemical property, the chemical reactivity. So already we have discussed that whenever there is a reduction in the size of the particle, there will be an enormous increase in the specific surface area. And due to this increase in the specific surface area, there will be an enormous increase. That is, a large number of atoms are said to be available at the uh, uh, surface, and this causes an enormous increase in the reactivity. So that is the reason we have observed that aluminium, which is considered to be highly stable at the bulk structure, it is found to become more explosive at the nanoscale. Similarly, the other chemical property is that nanomaterials, where the other type of metals, usually the bulk metals, they are not able to absorb the hydrogen. Whereas when the same metals are taken at the nanoscale, they are found to absorb the hydrogen atoms from 2 to 60 whenever their size is reduced. So this absorption of the hydrogen, it enables in what are called as the fuels, hydrogen fuel devices. So we can able to prepare what are called as hydrogen fuel devices. So the chemical properties, especially the reactivity of the material, is enormously getting increased because of more number of atoms being getting available at the surface. And similarly, the metals which usually cannot absorb the hydrogen, whenever they are taken at the nanoscale, they are found to absorb very large number of hydrogen atoms. So thereby, hydrogen fuel cells can be prepared by using these nanomaterials. Now, similarly, coming to the properties of the carbon nanotubes, again, the physical, or if we consider what are called as the mechanical properties. So here, usually if we take the physical property, it is mainly depending on what are called as the bonds of these carbon nanotubes. So the covalent bonds within these carbon nanotubes, they are said to be non-polar in nature. And the resultant of this non-polar nature is that they are not insoluble in water. So otherwise they are called as hydrophobic. So the carbon nanotubes are considered to be hydrophobic. And moreover, they are also non-reactive. So single walled carbon nanotubes, they are found to be excellently thermally stable, right? So this is about the nature of the carbon nanotubes. Now coming to the thermal properties. Now whenever we consider the thermal property, so the thermal conductivity of these materials is found to be very, very high. Now the reason for acquiring the high thermal conductivity is, now usually the thermal conductivity is given by the relation CVSL, where C is the specific heat of the substance, Vs is the velocity of the sound in the material, and length is the mean free path. Now here in this case, it is found that in case of single walled carbon nanotubes, the velocity of the sound in these tubes is found to be very, very large, of the order of 20 kilometers per second. Now usually the sound, the velocity of sound in the air, it is nearly, we can take it as 330 meters per second. Whereas whenever we consider the single walled carbon nanotubes, the velocity of the sound is considered to be nearly about 20 kilometers per second. So this enormously high value is directly responsible for a remarkable increase in the thermal conductivity of the carbon nanomaterials. So in case of the carbon nanomaterials, or otherwise the carbon nanomaterials are considered to be highly thermally conductive. Then considering the mechanical properties, now once again, the longitudinal velocity of the sound in the material is usually given by this expression, namely Vs is equal to square root of y by rho. Now already in the previous case we have discussed that the velocity of the sound in these carbon nanotubes, it is of the order of 20 kilometers per second, which is very, very high value. So when Vs is very high, naturally Y, the Young's modulus of the material, will also be very high. So here in this case, Y is the Young's modulus, whereas rho, it is called as the density of the material. So therefore, since Vs in carbon nanotubes is enormously high, so the Young's modulus of these materials will be very, very high, of the order of even 1000 gigapascals. Sometimes it will be even 1000 gigapascals. For example, for a comparison, the Young's modulus of steel and titanium are found to be approximately 2.1 and 1.1 gigapascals respectively, whereas the same value for the carbon nanotubes, it is found to be nearly about 45 gigapascals. That is, with respect to the steel, it is found to be almost 20 times greater. So therefore, the strength of these carbon nanotubes is considered to be very, very high, very large when compared to even that of the steel, like 20 times as that of that one. Now, because of this, though they are considered to be extremely strong, whenever they are bent, then they can be easily bent because they are extremely thin. So what happens is when it is bent, there will be a buckle like in the straw. So whenever we bend a straw, the straw will never break, but it will try to bend with by forming some buckling. So here the carbon nanotubes also, whenever they are subject or whenever they are bent, so they will buckle but never break. So therefore they are said to be very highly resilient. Then coming to the electrical properties. Now the carbon nanotubes can be obtained either as metallic in nature or sometimes semiconductor in nature, and this property mainly depends on the diameter of the carbon nanotubes and at the same time the chirality of the carbon nanotubes. That is, it depends on the chiral vector whatever we have taken. So the chiral vector whatever that is obtained, it mainly depends on the values of n and m. So now here in this case, when n minus m, if it is divisible by 3, then whatever the carbon nanotubes are said to be metallic in nature. Otherwise, they are said to be semiconducting in nature. Whereas, in general, the armchair carbon nanotubes, they are considered to be metallic in nature. Right? So, because whenever we consider the metallic nature of the carbon nanotubes, they are found to have very high conductivity of the electricity such that they are found to withstand even about 10 to the power of 9 amperes per centimeter square without breaking. So they can carry a very large current density when compared to the normal other conductors at the bulk structures. And at the same time, here it is found that they do not get heated even though whenever they are subjected to such a high current density. So no heating will be obtained even though there is a high current passing through the materials. Similarly, in case of the semiconducting state, the energy gap is found to depend on the radius of the tubes. So the energy gap between the uh, conduction band and the energy band, it is found to be inversely proportional to the radius, the square of the radius of the carbon nanotubes. So more the radius, less will be the energy gap between. So the electrical conductivity in general in multi-walled carbon nanotubes, it is considered to be somewhat very complex. That is, in some cases, it may appear as something like metallic, and in some other cases, it may appear as semiconducting in nature. So it all depends on how the chirality as well as the diameter is appeared. Then the other important property of the carbon nanotubes is they can form as what are called as a conductive tubes. So the carbon nanotubes has a characteristic that it acts as an interior channel. It can be considered to have what is called as an interior channel separated from the exterior by an impervasive graphene sheet. So because of this, the core of the carbon nanotube, it can be filled with some other atom or ion so that now it will generate a new class of materials. So by the filled carbon nanotubes, we can able to get different types of different types of materials with varied properties can be obtained. Right? Now, based on these various properties, it is found that the nanomaterials as well as the carbon nanotubes are found to have enormous number of applications in various fields. Like, for example, carbon material, nanomaterials are used in what are called as the sunscreen lotions or sunscreen creams. In fact, these sunscreen lotions or creams, they are made up of either zinc oxide or titanium oxide particles. When the size of these zinc oxide particles is considerably large, then whenever the cream is applied on the skin, that will now produce something like a wheatish sheen over the skin. That is, some patches of white patches like thing that can be obtained whenever the sunscreen lotion or cream is are applied on the skin. But it is found that when the same materials, particles are taken at the nanoscale, then the same nanoparticles or the same particles are found to become almost invisible, such that whenever the cream is applied on the skin, almost it appears as if nothing is applied over the skin. So that is the reason nowadays the sunscreen lotions are being now filled with the nanoparticles of few nanoparticles of either zinc oxide or titanium oxide. Similarly, the nanomaterials, they are used in preparing what are called as the self-cleaning glasses, right? Or otherwise they are also called as the active glasses. So active glass or self-cleaning glass means here they will have what is called as a photocatalytic and hydrophilic effect. So a photocatalytic effect means whenever the UV radiation falls on the glass, these nanoparticles are energized and they will break the greasy particles or greasy material or dust particles that are present over the glass material, and they will loosen that material and it appears as if it is getting cleaned away. Similarly, hydrophilic means that whenever the water falls or it gets in contact with the glass, then it gets spread across the glass evenly and helps washing the glass cleanly. So, without using an external application, by using these nanomaterials as we can make what are called as self-cleaning glasses. So let us see a small video of the self-cleaning glasses, how they will be. So here we can observe that the water is not getting, or the glass is not getting wet with the water, and at the same time, here we can see the cleaning effect of the material or the glass surface. So self-cleaning glasses can be prepared by introducing some nanomaterials into the glass, or having a nanomaterial coating over the glasses. Similarly, we can have what are called as the clothing. Stain resistant clothings can be prepared by using what are called as the nanomaterials, few nanomaterials. Similarly, zinc oxide, a layer of zinc oxide nanoparticles, whenever they are used, they behave as, or they can be acting as a better protection from the UV radiation. So here also we have a small video regarding this.
Wow, that's pretty amazing. Wow.
Hello everyone, welcome to Tigers. I'm sure you must have heard or seen some buzz around apparels which are stain repellent, anti-odor and can dry real quick when washed. They call it intelligent apparel. If you want to read about the technology used to manufacture these apparels, it is in the description below. In today's video, I'm gonna test all of this on one of the shirt which I bought recently which claims to be stain repellent and anti-odor. And its features are on the screen, you can pause and have a look at it. So without wasting any more time, let's go ahead and do the test.
So here we can observe that the fabric is neither getting stained or even not, it is not getting wet.
After the test, I can actually say that these apparels are great and does what it claims to be. Also worth all the hype that's been created on social media. So that's about it folks. Hope you guys have liked the video. If you
Right? So therefore, stain resistant clothing materials can be prepared where here nanoparticles in the form of little hairs or whiskers will help repel the water and other materials, making them as stain resistant. Similarly, they can also, that is by using some layers of zinc oxide materials as the nanoparticles as the layer, so they can act as the UV protection materials. Then we can also make what are called as armor clothings or shields by using what are called as the carbon nanotubes. So already we have discussed that carbon nanotubes are considered to be very resilient and they are found to have very high strength. So because of that, they are used in making what are called as the ballistic resistant materials like uh, bulletproof jackets or bulletproof shields for vehicles, military vehicles, etc. Right? So let us view a small video about this one. So the black fabric is the material that is using the carbon nanotubes. Sorry. So after wetting, the Kelvar is not supposed to act as a bulletproof material, while the carbon nano material coated fabric, it is found to act as a bulletproof material. So armor clothing and shields can be prepared by using the carbon nanotubes because of their high strength. Similarly, already during the first class itself, we had discussed that scratch resistant coatings like um, scratch proof glass materials, eyeglass lenses, or mobile phone displays, etc., are now possible using by making use of these carbon nanotubes, nanomaterials. So scratch resistant coatings, especially nowadays, it is being used for the automobiles cabinets like cars, eyeglass lenses, mobile phone displays. In all these cases, in order to protect them from scratching or chipping, the nanomaterials are being used. Similarly, in order to acquire a large strength, nowadays the tennis rackets or the tennis balls are also being manufactured by using this nanotechnology. Like it is found that in 2002, one of the company, a tennis racket company, by introducing what are called as the nanotube, carbon nanotubes, they have prepared a power racket which is considered to be more strengthy and at the same time very light. And meanwhile, the tennis ball manufacturing company called as Wilson, it has found to introduce a double core tennis ball where the inner core it is found to be coated with a clay of nanoparticles so that it acts as this. Now the clay is found to act as a sealant, making making it very difficult to escape the air from the ball. So almost the ball is said to be almost very hard. It will never break. So in making the tennis rackets or tennis balls, or golf um, um, uh, rackets, in all these cases, we can make the nanomaterials are being used enhance the strength. Similarly, the nanomaterials are also used in machining, in making the machining tools like for in cutting tools, drilling or grinding tools, in order to increase their efficiency and to withstand the wear and tear. The materials are being coated with some tungsten nanomaterials so that the wear and tear is found to be enormously reduced. Now, especially there is one of the applications of these carbon nanotubes which are found to act as what are called as the electromechanical actuators, which are used as actuators which are implanted within the human body. Like in few people, the heart may not be having a rhythmic, it may not be having a regular rhythm. So in that cases, usually what they do is they implant what is called as an actuator. Previously, ferroelectric actuators were implanted within the human body, where ferroelectric materials are considered to be highly uh, uh, non-reactive. So therefore, they were found to infuse within the body. But whereas now the carbon nanotubes are found to act as the actuators because it is found that whenever we take a single walled carbon nanotube and if the walls are applied with a suitable potential, electric potential, then the carbon nanotubes are found to get strained or get bent, and this bending it is found to get changed whenever the potential applied is reversed. So in this case, by applying the potential across these two surfaces, the carbon nanotube is found to bend in this direction. Whereas if the potential difference is applied in the opposite direction, the bending is getting reversed. So instead, if a alternating suitable potential is applied between these two, now this will act as an oscillating cantilever, and this can be used as the actuator. So natural muscles with microscopic actuators, uh, uh, by using these carbon nanotubes can be used, and these can be operated at a very few volts itself. And apart from that, nowadays the nanoparticles as well as carbon nanotubes are also used in various medical applications. Now, the nanoparticles can be administered in various ways, like parental or oral or nasal or ocular routes. Now, nanocapsules are a system in which the drug is confined to a cavity surrounded by a unique polymer membrane. By attaching a specific ligand on their surface, nanoparticles can be used for directing the drug to the specific target cells. So, a drug delivery can be done by using these nanomaterials as well as the carbon nanotubes. So, this is especially used in the cancerous treatments. So, here the usage of this one, that is a targeted drug delivery, will reduce the toxic effects because the drug need not actually the what they do that whenever the drug is passed to kill the cancerous cell, sometimes it can also affect the other particles, other living tissues. Whereas if a controlled and targeted drug delivery is done, then the toxicity effect can be reduced, and at the same time, the damage can be reduced, right? So both active and passive drug targeting can be achieved by manipulating the particle size and the surface characteristics of the nanoparticles, right? So there are huge number of applications in case of the nanotechnology as well as the nanomaterials. So the revolution is found to be having the endless possibilities. But though there are many advantages of using the nanomaterials as well as the carbon nanotubes, at the same time, these materials they also have a adverse effect on the environment. Now, as such, we have seen that nanomaterials are the materials having the size ranging from 1 nanometer to about 100 nanometers. A very small particles less than the size of almost virus. So therefore, are nearly equivalent to the size of the virus. So assume that we have some instrument or some system that is used some nanomaterials in order to enhance its property like strength, etc., or anything. Like nowadays, car bumpers are also made using the nanomaterials. But of course, after some time, we will be discarding that car bumpers are they will be thrown away due to some factor. So therefore, whenever they are discarded, these nanomaterials they can contaminate it with the ground or with the soil. And these nanomaterials are so tiny particles that they cannot be sleeved or they cannot be separated very easily. So therefore, they form as the contamination within the environment. So a soil contamination can take place. Even the atmospheric thing can be contaminated. by forming what are called as the aerosols, small tiny particles mixed in the atmospheric environment. They can cause, and whenever they are present, whenever we inhale, they will be entering into our human body and get deposited at vulnerable places, causing the cancerous thing. So therefore, at the same time, the nanotechnology, though it is having many advantages, while discarding or whenever we are trying to discard these nanomaterials, a careful discarding should be done. Otherwise, in future, the total environment itself can get contaminated with these nanomaterials where they can not be easily separated, and therefore they can cause a hazardous environment to the human life. So otherwise, these nanomaterials, carbon nanotubes, as well as nanotechnology, is considered to be a boon, and it is considered to be producing a lot of materials with varied phenomenal characteristics. Right? So with this, we have completed this particular topic. Right? So have a happy learning. Thank you.